All right, let's talk about how we're going to write a book and turn that book into a 10K speaking fee. But not just 10K speaking fee, how we're going to turn this book into an endless stream of speaking engagements and speaking opportunities. Now, a lot of people want to use a book to get speaking gigs. This is one of the most common things that I see when people want to write a nonfiction book. They want to write a nonfiction book so that they can speak and get paid as a speaker. Now, there are typically two types of people though. Okay, there are the people who already speak and they're looking to write a book to either raise their rates, further establish their credibility, or to speak more. Okay, so there's people that are already on the speaker circuit who then want to write a book. And then there are others, those who want to write a book so that they can then get on stages and speak, or they want to write a book so that they can speak more. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how this happened for me, and I've been both of these people at different points in my career. When I wrote my first book called Elevate Beyond, I was 23 years old, and I didn't speak. I wasn't in the industry, but I wrote this book, and this book allowed me to start my speaking career. So I wrote my book. It launched on May 1st, 2016. By that September, I was getting paid thousands of dollars to speak around California, which is my home state, as well as other states around the country shortly after that. Okay, so I used my book to start a speaking career, to start a paid speaking career that went on to be very successful. As I've evolved and I've done different things, I have used the other strategy where I have been speaking, but then I've written a book to further elaborate on that. So for example, in Big Idea to Bestseller, I was doing a lot of talks to organizations. I was doing a lot of talks to different masterminds. I was doing some guest coaching, speaking gigs, a ton of podcasts. And I didn't have the book, Big Idea to Bestseller, made yet. I had my 3 books. And so I was speaking more, but I knew I wanted to be even more niche and get even more specific. So I decided to write the book, Big Idea to Bestseller. So I spoke, I wrote a book, and then my speaking fee increased and my opportunities increased. Whereas when I first began, I wrote the book and used that book to curate the speaking opportunities. And I'm going to walk you through both of these types of people so that you could see where you're at and how you could benefit from both of these. So if you already speak, okay, here's how we can turn your book into a keynote and into a higher speaking fee. So number one is the minute you write your book, your rates should increase. Why? Because you are the expert on it. You have spent the time, the energy, the effort, the years of knowledge that has accumulated. You've now written the book, and therefore you are more knowledgeable. You are more of an expert. If your rates aren't equivalent to the level of expertise you possess, people that are hiring speakers will question if you are actually as good as you say you are. And so it's really important that you raise your rates immediately so that you can be taken seriously. It's kind of weird if you charge $1,000 if you're a best-selling author, right? Those don't equate. And I've been told this in my life that, hey, Jake, your prices are too low to the point where something's off. So I really want to make sure that you know that you have permission. As soon as your book's out, raise that rate. Next up is to reach out to your network and clients as soon as you finish the draft of your book. So when you are writing a book and you are already a speaker, as soon as you have written the draft of your book, and you can do this before or after, but this is a good general rule of thumb. As soon as the draft of your book is done, start reaching out to your past clients, the past people who have already paid you to speak, and say, hey, I just wrote my book on this. Do you want me to come out and give another speech? Hey, I just did my book on this. I'm going to be doing a tour. I'd love to come back and speak for your group. Hey, I just wrote my book on this. Would your organization like a bunch of copies? What this does, this allows you to dramatically increase the sales and get booked gigs before the book's even out. Okay, we've had clients do this who are able to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies to just a couple organizations because they used and tapped into their existing network. Next up is, how do we actually turn this into a keynote though? Okay, so let's say you're given a keynote and you're creating your book. Well, if you already have a keynote that you know lands, that you know hits, you have stories that are really effective, then what I want you to do is I want you to take those stories, I want you to take the core framework of your keynote, and you can turn that into a book so that you can have further materials. Okay, a lot of people need to hear the same thing over and over again for them to get the result. But also, it's great for people to hear the same information in different methods, aka a 1-hour keynote versus reading your book and having it on your nightstand. There's a different level of intimacy. There's a different way that you're hitting that potential reader with the knowledge that you possess. So you can actually take your keynote and from that formulate the book. You can take your stories from your keynote and formulate that into the book because you already know that those stories work. Now, once you have the book, we can really monetize this. So when you have the book, you can do a really fun giveaway where you put books under the seats. And then when you do your keynote and you walk out, you can say, hey, I have a gift. And everyone looks under their seats and boom, you have something really, really cool that gets everybody looking. People hold up the books and it's a huge, huge, huge way to get smiles on faces and build audience interaction. Also creating the need for everyone else who doesn't get a book to want one where they can buy it from you after, or they can buy it from you online, or they can download a free version of it depending on your strategy. You can ask the event host to buy books for attendees. So I recently did a mastermind. There were 45 people there and the host said, hey, Jake, I want to buy a copy for every person in my mastermind. Great. 45 books sold right off the bat. We sent them. And then that led to even more clients. So you can ask the event host to buy books for attendees. If you're doing corporate speaking or if you're doing a conference where you're going to have 100, 500, 1,000 attendees, this can be a very lucrative way to add revenue as a speaker by having a book. And then lastly, you can sell books in the back of the room. So at the end of a speech, amazing. All right, amazing. People can come, they can do a meet and greet, they can buy books, you can sign them. This is a great way to increase revenue from the gigs that you're already doing. So if you're already a speaker and you're trying to figure out if you should write the book, these are some of the things that can really help you write the book faster, but it can also help you raise your rate and it can help you monetize in different ways than just the speaker fee. There's also how you can create continuous education, which allows you to make more per customer so that you also don't have to necessarily travel every single time to that organization or to that event. So if you already speak, this was the section for you. Now, if you are looking to begin a speaking career or you want to speak more, here's how we can create the book and use the book to generate those gigs. So the first thing that you can do here is if you have a framework, a belief, a reference point, something that you are strongly passionate about, okay, or something that you already teach, where you take this framework, this methodology, this belief system, and you turn that into a book. And what happens is that lends itself to being the entry point for your keynote. Okay, so for example, this book right here, Big Idea To Bestseller. This is a book that is based on my framework of how to launch a nonfiction book. So what I do is I use this book to then create several different keynotes and several different workshops that I could present. I took the framework, put it into a book. That is incredibly valuable. Then I've picked out different elements and created individual workshops that have become on-demand programs. I've taken them and turned them into 3 talking points for my main keynotes. Okay. You can take the next thing is you could take your coaching methodology and you could turn that into a step-by-step formula, and each step-by-step becomes a chapter of your book. And then you can use this to give keynotes and workshops based on this methodology. So for example, someone that we worked with, they really wanted to do more speaking. So what did I encourage them to do? I said, hey, well, what's the framework that you take people through when you coach them? So they listed out the framework, and then we wrote the book in the order of the framework so that they could achieve the success and they could have the readers achieve the success. Now, once that was done, he wanted to start speaking. So people started asking, well, what do you speak on? And he would tell them the core points of his book, and that became his keynote, and that became several parts of his workshop. And that was able to save him time. He felt confident on it. He was able to have great speaking notes, and he was able to sell a ton of copies and get a ton of clients through that avenue. When you have a book, okay, if you want to start a speaking career on the back end of a book, if you write the book first, well, you can immediately jump into charging the value of a credible expert. All right. So when I first started speaking, I had my book. So I was able to command several $1,000s as a 23-year-old motivational speaker because I had the book to support my claim of what I could help the audience with. So when you write the book first, you're able to often get ahead of the game faster than you would if you just tried to be a speaker without having a book. Okay? The other thing that you can do is you can use your book to really, really get in the room and to build the relationships. So one of the things that I love doing myself and I love seeing our clients do is that once you write your book, you start reaching out during the research phase, the drafting phase, the pre-launch phase, once the book's out phase, and you actually start to reach out to all the event hosts and you introduce yourself through the form of giving somebody a book. Now, what this does is it creates a give first rather than, hey, I want to speak at your event, ask first. And what that can often do is break down that barrier of seeming like someone who's just pitching themselves and instead saying, hey, I love your event. I've gone to it as an attendee a few times. I actually wrote a book that's on this particular topic. I'd love to send you a copy of this. And if you like it, maybe we could talk about me speaking at your event. That is a great, great way to build and foster the relationships. I've done this and I've gotten several speaking gigs by giving away books that have then led to $5,000 gigs or $50,000 clients and various different things. So it's a really, really cool way that you can write the book and then use the book to get in touch with the decision makers, build the relationships, and then because they love your book, they will naturally love you and they will want you to come speak at their events. Also, what's really important to understand here is that different events plan out speakers a long time in advance. So if you know that your book's coming out in 6 months, well, you can lay the foundation now, build the relationship, say, hey, I love your event. I have a book that's coming out on this topic. I would love to send you a copy as soon as it's ready. I just wanted to introduce myself. Now you've started that relationship and you're able to start to build from there. All right, let me get a little tactical here for a second. I want to share with you guys a few different ways to find these people. Well, how do you know who you should speak with your book? Well, if you're writing a book on short-term rentals, well, find every short-term rental event that happens and go directly to those hosts because you would be a very niche speaker on a specific framework that could be incorporated in a conference. Okay. The other thing that you could do is instead of finding the events or conferences, you could find the influencers or the industry leaders who speak at the events that you want to speak at, who host the masterminds, the retreats, or the meetups. And what you do is you build the relationship with them through your book, and then they are often really great at referring you to those events or introducing you to those events so that you can then have more success. When I first started my speaking career, one of the fastest ways that I found to break into the speaker circuit was I became friends with other speakers. And yes, we were competing to a certain extent, but once I had built great relationships, they were willing to introduce me to the right people. And I was able to say, hey, I'll give them a copy of my book so that the introduction is also a direct value add. That led me to getting in touch with the event coordinators who were the decision makers, and they were able to get to know me faster and see my credibility faster than if I were just reaching out to them myself. So you can give your book away to the right people to build the reputation and to build the relationship that will then get you booked on these various different stages. Okay, now here's the last thing I'm going to share with you right now is this, which is offer to speak for free and then sell your book at the back of the room. So I mentioned this earlier. But if you want to break into speaking, sometimes, again, like I said, events have their speakers already. Or you need to figure out a way to break in and you're playing the long game. So you offer to speak for free on the front end, prove that you're really a great speaker, then they'll have no choice but to bring you back in the future. But here's the kicker. When you have the book, you can offer to speak for free, but then say, hey, but can I have a booth in the back of the room? Now, if you do this and you speak for a group of, let's say, 1,500 people, and 30% of the people buy books, you're going to sell 450 copies of your books. If you're selling it at $10 a pop, which would probably be more expensive, that's $4,500. If you're selling it at $20 a pop, that's $9,000 that you've just made. So you have a really great way to sometimes get your speaker's fee in other ways because you have the book. So you could speak for free, but still monetize from the book sales. This technique is especially valuable if you are writing the book and then you want to speak to your ideal clientele, because you could speak for free, use your book, make it the offer, speak for free. Hey, I'll speak for free and I'll give everybody there a free copy of my book. Now you're more likely to get the speaking gig, and then you do a great job. The people in attendance will likely hire you on the back end. Okay, to give you an example, I speak for free. I travel around. I've done some free speaking gigs, and I did one. I'll give you an example of this. One of my most recent ones is I invested about $2,000 between flight, hotel, transportation, food, all that stuff. And I netted on the back end that I spoke for free. But I netted about $80,000 of sales from this event that I spoke at for free. So it's really important that you write the book. It gets you in the door. If you don't have the book, you can't implement some of these things, nor command the same speaking for or generate the rest of the revenue. So here's the deal. When you write a book, you get massive credibility as the expert. You write the book, therefore you are the expert. You get, when you write a book, the authority to command a higher speaking fee. Because you've written the book on the topic, you are perceived to be the expert. And the more expertise you are, the more money you can make, right? Think about a doctor. The heart surgeon makes more than the general practitioner. Why? Because they are the specialist. They are the expert on one thing. If you are the expert and you are the specialist and you write a book on that, you are the expert on that thing. You are not no longer a generalist who claims to be an expert. Next is when you write a book, you have the tool to build relationships with the event's host and the decision makers. So the book gets you in the door. When you write a book, you have the product that you can monetize and sell, right, at the actual event. And then you have a great giveaway that you could use to build your email list. So you write the book once, okay? You write the book once, and then you can use it in so many different ways to get that 10K speaking fee, to get that 10K client, to make money every single time that you speak. And there are so many really awesome ways to do this, but you have to have the book to be able to leverage these opportunities. And this is why having a book is a great way to secure speaking engagements, to speak more frequently, or to charge more for the speaking engagements that you already do. I hope that you found this valuable in your journey. And if you want to learn more about how to write, publish, and launch a book, you can get a free copy of my book at go.bigideatobestseller.com/free-book. You can get a free copy of my book. It's the paperback copy. All that I ask is that you cover the shipping, and we'll get it mailed out to you. And if you want to learn more about working with us so that we can help you get your book done in just a matter of months, not years, well, reach out to us at bigideatobestseller.com, and you can go ahead and schedule a call with our team. So again, I hope that you take away something from this, and I will see you on the next one.